So the piece of wood that I bought, it didn't work for what I wanted it to be, and I'm too tight to waste it. So we made a different component out of it, and that component really it turned out to be pretty good. We call up, they've got more, we buy more. So we've got so much wood now because we bought everything that they had. We'll take it all. 3 semi trucks later, we have a full barn. And it was now the game is we've got to find something to make out of every ounce of this wood because really, I mean, when you get it, it's gray, it's nasty looking, it's got nails in it. But buddy, there's gold in that there wood. And it was something that you don't want to waste it on a cutting board because it's got a lot more to offer than that. It's got a lot of tone, a lot of music left in it. And that is, we found a perfect outlet in turkey calls. I mean, turkeys didn't know it, but their days are numbered. Because this old growth lumber, it came from a building that was originally built in 1870. So these trees were original old growth, and they were from the northern U.S. It was a slow, cold growing climate that they were brought up into this world in, and it was. I had no idea the tonal characteristics of this wood until we actually really started getting into it, putting it in our banjos, seeing the response from a banjo wood rim to a banjo bridge, the instant noticeable difference. And that's where the idea came for this little piece of wood right here. That's the striker part of that call. And that has made one of the largest differences.
We have probably 7 or 8 different types of woods we use. One of our most prized wood is that we use a flame maple. And it's really neat because we do a process to this which is pretty spectacular. We do something called, it's called thermally modification. We're actually thermally modifying the wood. We're actually taking it and baking it. And it's really neat because maple starts out kind of like this piece here, a lot lighter color. And what we found is we use the same wood that Gibson Guitars uses on their Les Paul guitar tops. And we use this also on our banjo necks, but it's a flame maple. And when we actually put it through the process, it turns it this beautiful golden brown. We also have cedar. Everybody likes cedar. Cedar is just such a beautiful wood. A lot of our cedar is 60 to 70 plus years old. We also have other ones we don't have displayed here. We have walnut, we have osage, we have purple heart, we have Honduran mahogany. Now Honduran mahogany is used quite a bit on acoustic guitars. That's a beautiful wood that we have. And of course we have our 500-year-old growth also. Well, one of the things that we really tried to do, we tried to bring a quality call to the market, but we also want to stay in our niche, and it's bringing something with kind of a musical background or a musical quality product, and with just great tone. And like I said, there's a lot of great call makers out there. We're just trying to carve out our little niche in this market to bring a great product to the market.
High-Tech Firearms and Training is your Southern Indiana source for all of your hunting and shooting supplies and firearms. We have a fully stocked selection of handguns, rifles, shotguns, knives, ammunition, bows, and archery supplies. Firearm training and personal protection classes are offered by NRA certified instructors in our in-house training center. Remember, shoot often and carry safely. High-Tech Firearms and Training is conveniently located in Sellersburg, Indiana. Follow Indiana Outdoor Adventures online with Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Stay up to date with our exciting adventures as we're out in the field filming and meeting new people. From news updates and announcements to Twitter posts by co-host Troy McCormick. Why wait until the next season of shows when you can follow us as we're filming them? Join us online to get the most current news on Indiana Outdoor Adventures. Hillbilly Custom Game Calls, offering the finest and precision-made diaphragm mouth calls for wild turkey hunting. Each call is handmade and gauge stretched for exact tension each and every time. Select from double and triple reed calls like you've never heard before. We also have an assortment of handmade wood box calls, glass and slate top pot calls, and predator calls that will make us your source for all of your custom game call needs. Look for us online at www.hillbillygamecalls.com. If you own timberland or open land, Haubrey Forestry Consulting specializes in timber sales, timber management, and wildlife habitat management for private landowners. We are also experienced with timber stand improvement, contract tree planting, and reforestation work. Our specialty is wildlife habitat management. If you own land and want to see an increase in deer, turkey, quail, and grouse populations on your property, we can tailor a management plan specifically for your needs. Welcome back to Indiana Outdoor Adventures. This afternoon, we're at the Glendale State Fish and Wildlife Area, and we're going to be doing an interesting project with bobwhite quail. Bud, can you tell me just a little bit about what your position is and what we're going to be doing today?
Yep, I'm Bud Vivarka. I'm the farmland game research biologist for Indiana Department of Natural Resources. And we're doing a project on bobwhite quail here in Daviess County where we are putting radio collars on quail to track their daily movements. We're tracking females to nesting during the summer. We're tracking them throughout their brooding period. We also got males collared, and we'll be able to track the movements whether they're on the property or off the property. This is one of the collars that we're using this year, and it is a small medallion collar. It is referred to as a transmitter because it transmits a signal. This actually goes over the neck and forms kind of a necklace.
So it truly is like a collar.
Yes, it is truly a collar. It goes right over the head like this. Okay. And this antenna, about 8 inches, transmits signals about a half a mile. In good weather, we can get that. Sometimes with rain, with vegetation, it's limited. Typically I'll have a person who will use a receiver and that will receive the signal that this puts off, and they'll track the birds every day.
Now, radio trackers and transmitters on wildlife is nothing new, but this is the first time I've heard of it being used on bobwhite quail. Is this a study that's been done in Indiana before, or is this something new for the state?
We've done some radio calling before when we've done some relocation of birds. I believe back in the mid-90s they did some relocation and they wanted to track some of their birds at that point. We haven't ever done actual nesting and brood rearing study, and part of the emphasis of this study also is disturbance. Our area here, Glendale Fish and Wildlife Area, gets a lot of use, not only by hunters but recreators.
So how many birds have been trapped and collared with radio transmitters already this year?
So far this year we've got 13 birds. We've got 8 males, 5 females. Today we've got an additional 2 females and males to collar.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get some birds out and let's get some collars on them.
Okay. We've got a female here, and she looks in pretty good shape. A little bit of panting. Typically when they get panting, that's a little bit of a stress indicator. So we'll get her worked up pretty quickly, and my assistant Matt Carney here will check her over for any injuries. He'll check the wings, he'll check her legs, make sure there's no broken bones, and then check to make sure her reflexes are fine. She's blinking her eyes fine. She doesn't seem lethargic. So she seems in good condition to put a radio collar on. The bands are marked with our telephone number at the Bloomington field office, so that if they're recovered by a hunter or other recreators on the property, they can let us know that they've got it. We take each band, it goes on the leg, and for some federal studies, they want a certain leg. Here, these bands aren't federal bands, these aren't a migratory bird, so it doesn't really matter what leg, just one of most convenience that we put the band on. And we make sure it's nice and tight and not overlapping, so that if there's any kind of exposure of an edge to cut the leg of the bird. And then once it's on, we give it a quick rotation to make sure it slides all the way around the bird. Okay.
And obviously the antenna doesn't impede the flight or anything?
No, antenna is very flexible. Typical, as the bird works through the field, it'll bend down and eventually just lay kind of along the back. Once we put it on too, we'll kind of lay it down behind her. We'll just slide the collar over her head and get down behind the back of her skull. And then we actually will cinch it up here. And got a slide we'll put up on here. It's a small crimp that we'll use, put over on the bird. And then we'll go ahead and use a pair of small little pair of new-nose pliers here, and just crimp that down, and that holds nice and tight on that bird. Okay. Once the collar's in place, we'll trim any excess cable off. We don't want to have any of this shiny silver cable showing because that'll help attract any predators. And so once that collar's in place, he'll fluff the feathers up around that collar, kind of lay down nice against the chest. Pulling those feathers up around too allows a little more room for around the crop when that bird's feeding. What's that?
It's 150-602. Is that the frequency of the transmitter?
That it is.
Yeah.
And,
That'll obviously be important when you go to try and track her later.
Yeah, and then of course we'll throw that signal real quick on our receiver here.
Now, I know that we've already tested these before we put them on. Obviously, this is our secondary test before we're going to release her into the field.
Yeah, now that we've put the collar on, we always want to double check to make sure that the signal we have written down is also the same one that's on her, and that it's working. And it is it's a what we consider a 30 pulse per minute. So about every 2 seconds that beep goes. If she were to die and that collar sits still for 8 hours, then at that point we'll get a double beep, and then that'll let us know that that collar has come off the bird, or she has been killed by either a predator, exposure, something has caused mortality, and then we'll be able to go in, examine the area, and determine a cause of mortality. You can adjust our receiver here. And you see we have it on. We have a dial here, and each of these changes the frequency along here, and I can adjust it to different frequencies. So right now we're set at 602, which is what she is, and that way we're not picking up the other callers. If I were to turn one of those, it'd probably pick it up right now too. Last year we didn't lose any birds during the season until the radio started to fail late in the year.
What is the battery life?
The current ones we have should last till somewhere about mid-September to late September. We're getting a new set of collars, and those will last well into November. So we'll be able to, this year, with some of our newer collars, be able to track some of these birds all the way to the start of the season.
Hey, well, that's it for today at Glendale Fish and Wildlife Area, radio collaring bobwhite quail. Special thanks to Bud and to Matt for sharing the experience with us, and we'll have to check in with Bud later in the season to find out how his test results come out from monitoring the quail. Join us again next week, right here on Indiana Outdoor Adventures.